Well, good evening. Thank you, Paul, for that very kind introduction, and many thanks also to the Ad Club for this honor and for the opportunity to speak to you this evening. I'd also like to extend my most enthusiastic congratulations to Lee Pelton, a friend, collaborator, and kindred spirit in the work we celebrate tonight, as well as the honorees who will be named later in the program and all of the finalists with whom I am blessed to be among. As the video indicated, I am privileged to be a part of a team with a long tradition and an enduring mission to champion equal rights and opportunity for all, particularly those for whom such basic human dignities remain elusive. For example, I am pleased to be joined here this evening by Nancy Stager, Eastern's Director of Human Resources, who also oversees the Eastern Bank Charitable Foundation. Nancy has been my key partner in our advocacy work and has been one of the leading voices in the private sector in support of the Transgender Public Accommodations Bill, which could finally pass as early as next week. As has always been the case, it is through the personal leadership of people like Nancy that our society ultimately finds its better self. Nancy, thank you for your personal leadership on this and so many other important issues. Eastern Bank was founded almost 200 years ago to provide financial services and credit at a time during which there was no national banking system or national currency in the United States. At that time, only wealthy merchants and ship owners had a safe place to save or borrow money. Our original founders recognized that this was not only not right from a social justice perspective, but also not smart if they were to develop a country and an economy that was still then in its infancy. This original construct of right and smart continues to be the guidepost for our thinking today as we undertake issues of social justice beyond those directly related to financial matters alone. And it is that lens that fuels our work towards addressing disparities and inequities that negatively impact the LGBT community, people of color, and all women. It is through this dual perspective that we appeal to others in the private sector and elsewhere to take a stand with us, using their voice and their actions to make meaningful, positive change with respect to the many social justice issues of our time. The goal here is that even though we cannot agree on philosophical and indeed moral grounds regarding a particular issue, hopefully we can agree that it makes sense for business reasons. Our advocacy on behalf of transgender equality is but one example of this. Recently, I was challenged by a local business leader regarding our support for the Public Accommodations Bill under the premise that the transgender community is less than 1% of the population and therefore not much of a market. In short, he asked, where's the business case in that? It was clear that this person did not understand or support transgender people, perhaps for religious reasons or simply due to ignorance. So obtaining agreement that this was the right thing to do was unlikely. However, I outlined the business case as follows. The transgender community is 1% of the population as far as we know. Unfortunately, expressing your true gender identity, if it is different from your physical gender, is not comfortable or even safe in today's society, so the actual population is larger than you think. After all, how many of us who watched the 1976 Summer Olympics expected the world's men's decathlon champion to be a transgender woman? In addition, transgender equality is on the front lines of the continued fight for full equality by the LGBT community, which, as far as we know, is about 10% of the population. Unfortunately, as far as we've come in recent years, expressing one's true sexual orientation is still not embraced by all. Further, LGBT equality is now supported by most people, especially here in Massachusetts, and by nearly all millennials. So, the market here is not 1%, not 10%, but most and soon all. Don't you want your company to demonstrate the values embraced by nearly the entire market? Making the business case is critically important, not only because not all will share your view regarding what is right, but because it ensures that an action is truly sustainable. To put it bluntly, if there is no margin, there is no mission. As the late Senator Robert F. Kennedy once said, we must recognize the full humanity of all of our people before God, before the law, and in the councils of government. We must do this not because it is economically advantageous, although it is, not because the laws of God command it, although they do. We must do it for the single and fundamental reason that it is the right thing to do. Sadly, many companies today not only are not fully embracing equal rights and opportunity for the LGBT community, but are failing to fully include underrepresented communities and groups, such as people of color and women within the bastions of white male power. Inclusion within senior management, on corporate boards, and in the ownership of major businesses while providing equal pay for equal work is often not viewed as necessary, let alone a moral obligation. However, what equally astounds me is the lack of resonance of the business case for full inclusion, especially as compared with other much discussed business imperatives. Take innovation, for example, a concept that is readily embraced throughout the private sector today. Every company wants to find a way to become more innovative, especially in the face of a rapidly changing and uncertain world. Many organizations have gone as far to set up innovation labs, often requiring no business case or little specific financial justification whatsoever. Understanding that such expenditures are investments towards developing new insights through exploration and experimentation. These companies understand that the ultimate pursuit here is to better compete through the most robust collective mindset possible, drawing from experiences and perspectives not currently inherent within their organization, which is, of course, the most significant business benefit of greater diversity and inclusion. Yet despite this, there is a tremendous difference between the commitment and attitude towards D&I initiatives, best described as one of compliance, or have to, as opposed to that demonstrated towards innovation, which is often one of unbridled enthusiasm. Business leaders that do not see this connection not only cede the full extent of the best talent available to competitors like Eastern and others in this room, but make what is a positive and powerful brand differentiator for us today an increasing negative for them, eventually dooming their organizations to irrelevancy and ultimately extinction. While this may be an attractive outcome from a purely selfish perspective, it is not good for our economy or our community upon which our businesses ultimately depend. Because of this, celebrations like tonight's are critically important and why our work, our fight, goes on. Thank you.